The morning was very quiet when I woke up. The sky was still soft and pale, not yet bright with the sun. The world outside my window looked calm, like it was still sleeping. I lay in bed for a few minutes, listening. No loud cars, no people talking, just the faint sound of birds waking up somewhere far away. I don't know why, but that morning felt different. Usually, when I wake up, my mind is already busy. I think about work, messages, responsibilities, and things I forgot to do. But that day, my thoughts were slow, gentle, like they did not want to rush. I decided to go for a walk. I put on a simple sweater and comfortable shoes. I did not check my phone. I did not play music. I just stepped outside. The air was cool and fresh. It touched my face softly, like a quiet greeting. The street near my house was almost empty. The houses looked peaceful. Curtains were still closed. Lights were still off. It felt like I was walking through a secret world that only early mornings could show. Each step I took sounded louder than usual, because everything else was so silent. My shoes pressed against the pavement with a soft rhythm. Step, step, step. As I walked, I noticed small things I had never seen before. A tiny flower growing between the cracks of the sidewalk, dew resting gently on the grass, shining like little diamonds. A cat stretching lazily near a gate, blinking slowly at me as if to say good morning. I smiled without even thinking. The sky slowly changed color, from pale blue to soft pink. Then a little orange began to appear at the edge. The sun was waking up too. I realized something as I walked. I had been moving so fast in life that I forgot how beautiful slow moments could be. There was no big reason for this walk. I was not exercising seriously. I was not meeting anyone. I was not running away from something. I was just walking. And for the first time in a long time, it felt enough. I took a deep breath. The air filled my lungs completely. It felt clean inside me, like it was washing away something heavy that I had been carrying without knowing. The world was still quiet, but inside me, something had started to speak. I kept walking, even after I reached the end of my street. I turned left without thinking. The road ahead was long and almost empty. A few trees stood quietly on both sides, their leaves moving gently with the morning breeze. The sun was rising higher now. Its light was soft and golden, touching everything slowly. The houses looked warmer. The sky looked wider. The world felt open. For the first time in a long time, I could hear my own thoughts clearly. Usually, my mind is full of noise. Messages, deadlines, worries, plans. But that morning the noise was gone. There was only space. And in that space, my thoughts started to speak softly. I thought about how tired I had been lately. Not just physically tired, but tired in my heart. I had been saying I'm fine too many times. Smiling when I felt heavy inside. Telling myself to be strong without ever resting. As I walked, I asked myself a simple question. When was the last time I truly felt calm? I could not remember. The question stayed with me. It did not hurt. It just sat quietly in my mind. A bird suddenly flew across the road in front of me. Its wings moved freely, without fear. It reminded me of something simple: freedom. I wondered if I had been holding myself too tightly. Holding my worries, holding my expectations, holding other people's opinions. Maybe I was tired because I never let go. The wind brushed against my face again. I closed my eyes for a few seconds while walking slowly. I felt the cool air, the warmth of the sunlight, the steady ground under my feet. I was here, in this moment, not in yesterday's mistakes, not in tomorrow's fears, just here, and somehow, that felt powerful. I passed by a small park. The grass was still wet from the night. A bench stood near a tree, empty and quiet. I decided to sit down for a while. The wood felt cold under my hands. I leaned back and looked at the sky. The clouds were moving slowly, not rushing anywhere. I realized something again. The world does not hurry the sun to rise. The trees are not stressed about growing. The birds do not worry about tomorrow's flight. They simply exist. Maybe I could learn from that. Maybe I did not need to have everything figured out. Maybe I just needed to walk, to breathe, to feel. And in that quiet morning, sitting alone on that bench, I began to understand that peace is not something we find in big moments. Sometimes, It is waiting for us in simple steps on an empty road. After sitting for a while, I stood up and continued walking. The park slowly came to life. I saw an old man in the distance, moving slowly along the path. He wore a simple cap and carried a small bag in his hand. As I got closer, I noticed he was feeding the birds. He threw small pieces of bread onto the grass. The birds gathered around him without fear. They trusted him. He moved gently, patiently, as if he had all the time in the world. I slowed my steps as I walked past him. He looked at me and smiled. It was not a big smile, not loud or dramatic, just soft and kind. "Good morning," he said. His voice was calm, like the morning itself. "Good morning," I replied. For a second, I thought about just walking away, but something made me stop. "Beautiful morning," he added. "Yes," I said. "It feels different today." He nodded, as if he understood more than I said. "I walk here every morning," he told me. "The world speaks more clearly before it becomes noisy." His words stayed in the air between us. The world speaks more clearly before it becomes noisy. I felt something shift inside me. He was right. In the quiet, I had heard my own thoughts. I had felt my own heart. During the day, everything becomes loud. Phones ring. People talk. Cars move. Responsibilities call, and slowly, we stop hearing ourselves. He threw another small piece of bread to the birds. "Most people rush," he continued. "But the morning never rushes." I looked around. The sunlight filtered gently through the trees. The birds hopped freely. The air felt soft. It was true. The morning was patient. "Do you live nearby?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "But I don't usually walk this early." He smiled again. "Maybe you should." There was no pressure in his voice, just a simple suggestion. We stood there in comfortable silence. It did not feel awkward. It felt peaceful. After a moment, I thanked him and continued my walk. But his words walked with me. The world speaks more clearly before it becomes noisy. As I left the park, I realized something small but important. I was not the only one who needed quiet. Maybe everyone does. Maybe that old man had his own worries, his own stories, his own losses. But he chose to come here every morning, to feed birds, to breathe, to listen. And maybe that was his way of staying strong. As I walked back toward the road, I felt lighter. Not because my problems were gone, but because I understood something new. Peace is not something we wait for. It is something we choose. And sometimes, it begins with a quiet morning walk, and a stranger with a gentle smile. I left the park and turned toward the longer road that led back home. The sun was fully awake now, shining brighter but still gentle. A few cars began to pass by. The quiet was slowly fading, but it had not disappeared yet. As I walked, I felt something unexpected, a memory. It came softly at first, like a shadow behind me. A morning from years ago. I used to walk like this with someone. We did not talk much, but we walked side by side. Sometimes our hands brushed against each other. Sometimes we laughed for no reason. Back then, mornings felt full of hope. I stopped walking for a moment. I had not thought about that person in a long time. Or maybe I had tried not to. Some memories are not loud. They do not shout. They just sit quietly inside your heart. I realized I had been avoiding this memory because it carried both warmth and pain. We used to make plans during our walks. Big dreams, simple dreams. Dreams about the future. We believed life would move exactly the way we imagined. But life changed. People change. Paths separate. The relationship ended quietly, without a big fight. Just distance. Just silence, growing slowly between us. And one day, the walk stopped. For a long time I felt angry. Then I felt sad. Then I told myself I did not care anymore. But that morning, as the sunlight touched my face, I understood something new. It was not a wasted time. Those walks had taught me how to slow down, how to listen, how to feel. Even if that person was no longer in my life, the lesson stayed. I started walking again, slower this time. I realized I had been afraid to walk alone because it reminded me of what I lost. But now, walking alone did not feel lonely. It felt strong. I was not walking beside someone else. I was walking beside myself. The thought made me smile a little. The pain I once carried did not feel as heavy anymore. It felt like a small stone in my pocket, still there, but no longer sharp. Maybe healing does not happen loudly. Maybe it happens in small steps. Step by step, breath by breath, memory by memory. I looked up at the sky again. It was bright now. The day was ready to begin. Soon, the streets would be busy. Soon, my phone would light up with messages. Soon, responsibilities would call my name. But right now, I still had this moment. This quiet space between the past and the future. And for the first time, the memory I had been avoiding no longer controlled me. It simply reminded me that I had loved, I had hoped, and I had survived. And that was enough. The walk was almost over. I reached the familiar corner where the streets started to get busy. Cars honked softly in the distance, and people began to appear, walking quickly with their morning tasks. The quiet of the early morning was fading, but something inside me had changed. I slowed down, taking in the last moments of the calm. The air still felt fresh, even as the city woke up. I noticed the small things, again the way the sunlight glimmered on the rooftops. A little dog wagging its tail happily, the gentle sway of leaves on a tree. It was all ordinary, yet it felt extraordinary. As I walked toward my house, I realized how much I had missed these simple, quiet moments. How often had I rushed through life, chasing deadlines and worrying about what might happen tomorrow? How often had I forgotten to just breathe and notice? I entered my street, passing the houses that had looked so sleepy hours ago. Now they were alive with morning routines. But I felt calm, strong, awake in a way I had not been before. The walk had been more than just movement. It had been a return to myself. I stopped in front of my door and took a deep breath. The world outside was no longer silent, but I carried my quiet morning with me. It felt like a secret treasure I could take anywhere, no matter how loud life became. I smiled, knowing I had found something important, something that could not be taken away. My own presence, my own peace. As I opened the door, I thought about the old man in the park, the birds, the memories, and the soft sunlight. Everything had led me here. Every step, every thought, every quiet moment had brought me closer to understanding that life is not only about rushing and achieving. Sometimes, it is about walking slowly, noticing, breathing, and simply being. I placed my shoes by the door and sat by the window for a moment, watching the world move. The morning was no longer empty. It was full of possibility, and I was ready to meet it not with rush or worry, but with calm, with awareness, and with gratitude. That quiet morning walk had given me more than peace. It had reminded me that the world is always moving, but I can always choose to move gently too. And from that day on, whenever life felt too fast, I promised myself one thing. I would always find a quiet morning to walk, to listen, and to come home to myself.